Think your Ford can't make it past 200,000 miles? I've seen plenty roll past 300,000 miles and still run strong. The difference isn't luck, it's the way you maintain it. I'm RJ, a mechanic for over 20 years, and I've seen just about everything. From Ford F-150s that barely make it past 100K, to old Rangers still running smooth at 350K. The difference always comes down to maintenance. Today, I'll break down the 12 proven steps I use in my own shop to help owners avoid major repairs and get every mile out of their trucks and SUVs. Let's start with number 1, which is something pretty important but also neglected. If you want your Ford to make it past 300,000 miles, regular oil changes are non-negotiable. I know the sticker on your windshield or the owner's manual might say you can go 7,500 miles or even 10,000 miles between oil changes, but I've seen what happens when people push it that far. It's not pretty. Engines like the 5.4-liter Triton V8, 3.5-liter EcoBoost, and even the 2.5-liter Duratec can sludge up fast when oil gets cold. Once that sludge builds up, it clogs tiny oil passages, starves your engine of lubrication. Before you know it, you're dealing with ticking lifters, worn timing chains, and even a seized motor. I've seen too many good Fords ruined because someone tried to stretch an oil change to save money. Here's the truth. Changing your oil a little earlier is one of the cheapest ways to protect your engine. Oil breaks down faster under heat and stress, and Ford engines, especially the EcoBoost turbos, run hot. I always tell customers, change your oil every 5,000 miles if you're using full synthetic, and closer to 3,000 if you do a lot of towing, idling, or short trips. A standard oil change with a quality filter will run you about $40 to $60 if you do it yourself. Compare that to a $5,000 engine replacement. It's a no-brainer. All you need is a socket wrench, an oil filter wrench, a drain pan, and about 45 minutes. And don't cheap out on filters. I've cut open enough bargain filters to see they barely have any media inside. Stick with Motorcraft filters. They're designed specifically for Ford engines and seal properly every time. One more thing. Don't fall for the lifetime oil or extended interval hype. There's no such thing. Oil gets dirty. Additives wear out. And engines wear faster when oil sits too long. Number 2 is one of the most expensive problems I see in high-mileage Fords, which comes from ignoring the timing chain. It's one of the parts that's out of sight, out of mind, until you hear that dreaded rattle at startup. By then, you're already looking at a big repair bill. Engines like the 3.5-liter EcoBoost and the older 5.4-liter Triton V8 are well known for timing chain issues. On the EcoBoosts, the chain tends to stretch over time, especially if oil changes are skipped or cheap oil is used. The chain tensioners and guides eventually wear down, and when that happens, the engine starts running rough or rattling when cold. If you keep ignoring it, you could end up with bent valves or a completely ruined motor. I've seen plenty of good F-150s and Explorers go to the junkyard just because the timing system was neglected. The 5.4-liter Triton, especially the 3-valve version found in 2004 to 2010 F-150s, has its own set of timing chain headaches. But these parts don't fail overnight, they wear slowly. And the best way to prevent it is with clean, quality oil and consistent oil changes. If the oil's dirty or low, those tensioners can't do their job and the chain starts rattling. If you start hearing a rattle at startup or idle, don't ignore it. Have it checked right away. A simple inspection might cost you $100 to $150, but catching it early can save you from a $2,000 to $3,000 timing repair or even a full engine replacement. Even if you're a hands-on DIYer, timing chain work is not an easy job, so it's best left to a shop. And now to number 3, which is something you've probably forgotten. When people think of maintenance, they often think of oil and forget everything else. But I've seen way too many catastrophic failures in Fords because someone skipped coolant, transmission fluid, or brake fluid changes. Every fluid in your Ford plays an important role, including coolant and antifreeze, transmission fluid, differential and transfer case fluid, brake fluid, and power steering fluid. Never trust a sticker that says lifetime fluid. Real-world driving kills fluid quality over time. For example, if Ford's 3.5-liter EcoBoost or 3.7-liter V6 engines are used in Explorers, Taurus, and Edge, the water pump is driven by the timing chain. If the coolant corrodes internally, it can damage head gaskets, dump antifreeze into the crankcase, or ruin bearings. Some of these failures can cost thousands. Transmission fluid is another big one. Change it after 100,000 miles or earlier under duty. A clean fluid swap of $100 to $200 can save you from a $4,000 or more rebuild down the line. As for coolant, flush or replace it every 60 to 100,000 miles and inspect it every few years. Differential or transfer case oils should be replaced every 50,000 to 80,000 miles, especially in four-wheel drive vehicles. As for brake fluid, at least every 2 years. Remember that brakes are a safety system, so don't skip this. Spending $60 to $150 every few years on fluid changes is nothing compared to a $2,000 or $4,000 failure. I can't tell you the number of Explorers I've repaired where the coolant was black, rusted, or full of debris. Number 4. Pay attention to the head bolt and spark plug issues if you want your Ford to last for over 300,000 miles. If I had a nickel for every head gasket or spark plug failure I've fixed that started with bad head bolts or weak spark plug threads, I'd be retired. You don't want your Ford to die over something avoidable. On many Triton V8s, especially in F-150s, E-Series vans, and Crown Vic-style platforms, the heads are aluminum, and the original head bolt or spark plug hole threads tend to be weaker than ideal. Over time, those threads can strip or fail, letting spark plugs blow out or heads warp. Plug blowouts are a known issue. The aluminum thread in the head wears or breaks, and the spark plug literally gets pushed out under compression. I've repaired plenty of 5.4-liter motors where the plug hole is blown or the bolt holes in the heads are damaged beyond reuse. I recommend replacing bolts with stronger ones or studs. Many owners upgrade to ARP head studs or bolts designed to hold up under repeated heat cycles. That reinforcement gives you more safety margin when you torque things down or when the engine flexes under load. Just remember, when you remove heads or take off valve covers, examine bolt threads and spark plug holes. If anything looks flattened, cross-threaded, or weak, address it then. Also, if a spark plug blows or won't torque correctly, get a thread repair kit. Don't listen to all those myths like spark plugs are lifetime or torquing it down harder solves it. This often makes it worse. Number 5 is one hidden killer in some Fords, and that's the water pump and how it's buried inside the engine on certain V6s. I've watched well-maintained engines die because someone ignored coolant care. In engines like the 3.5-liter and 3.7-liter, the water pump is internal, located behind the timing cover and driven by the timing chain. If that pump fails or leaks, coolant can end up in the crankcase and mix with engine oil. That's a recipe for catastrophic damage like busted head gaskets, ruined bearings, or a full engine replacement. To prolong the life of your Ford, I recommend flushing and replacing coolant regularly. Don't trust any lifetime coolant. Change it every 60 to 100,000 miles or earlier under harsh conditions. Fresh coolant helps protect seals, keeps corrosion at bay, and reduces any chances at pump failure. Also, watch out for signs like a slow drip near the front of the engine, a sweet smell, milky oil, or unexplained coolant loss. All of these are red flags. Don't wait for a full failure because catching it early might save the engine. Spending $100 to $200 on coolant, sealing, and hose checks is negligible compared to a $2,000 to $4,000 or more engine repair if coolant destroys internals. If you think this is helpful, hit that like button. It helps the channel a lot. Number 6. Pay attention to strange sounds and engine codes. In my 20-plus years wrenching on Fords, I've seen owners ignore odd noises or flashing check engine lights until the car's in the shop for thousands. That's no way to treat a working truck or SUV. Catching little issues early can save you a fortune. If there are strange sounds like rattles, ticking, or clunks, that means something's worn, loose, or falling. For instance, the 3.5-liter EcoBoost engines are known for timing chain or cam phaser rattle on a cold start if oil pressure is low or components are worn. And remember, your check engine light isn't a fancy lamp, but a sign that your car is talking to you. Codes like P0016 on Fords, for instance, hint that timing components are misaligned. If you don't want a Ford that breaks down after 100,000 miles, use an OBD2 code reader. You can buy a decent one for $30 to $75. Plug it in and see what codes pop up. With your Ford, check things like belts, heat shields, pulleys, or loose components. Sometimes the sound might be something small like a loose shield or a belt squeal. Then address the issue quickly. Replacing worn tensioners, guides, or cam phasers early might cost a few hundred or maybe $1,000, but letting them fail can mean head removal, timing cover work, or even engine damage. You can imagine how expensive that is. Now on to number 7. For a Ford that lasts for over 300,000 miles, always replace faulty parts with Ford OEM parts or parts that use the updated design. I've seen customers who try to save money with cheap knockoffs, only to pay way more later. Ford OEM parts are built to the same specs as the original components in your truck, SUV, or van. That means you avoid issues like misaligned parts, improper tolerances, or leaks. Shops that use generic aftermarket stuff often spend extra labor just making parts fit or adjusting things. Investing in an OEM Ford part might cost more up front, but here's the deal. A cheaper part that fails early can result in rework and even damage to other components. A good example is replacing a cam phaser. If you use a cheap part, it might rattle and fall, causing timing damage or engine damage. If you're good at car DIY, you can replace belts, sensors, plugs, or spark plugs yourself with basic tools within an hour. But for harder jobs, like any components tied to the timing system, engine heads, or parts buried under complex assemblies, go to a professional. Many people say that updated designs don't fit as well as original ones, but Ford doesn't update parts unless there's a failure or to prevent one. If your Ford has a known design flaw like a weak guide or bad thread, using the updated version gives you the benefit of that fix. While working on Fords, overheating is one of the most brutal failures I see, and that takes me to number 8. Overheating is avoidable if folks pay attention early, but an overheated engine can warp heads, blow head gaskets, or even ruin pistons, shortening the life of your Ford. Keeping your cooling system in top shape is cheap insurance compared to a $2,000 to $5,000 repair. Always look at the coolant reservoir when the engine is cold and make sure it's between min and max. If you see it dropping over time, there's likely a leak somewhere in the hose, radiator, or water pump. Old coolant gets dirty and rusty and loses its ability to handle heat and corrosion. I recommend flushing every 60,000 to 100,000 miles or sooner if you tow, haul, or drive in hot weather. Clean coolant helps extend the life of hoses, radiators, and pumps. Also, constantly check the parts that are related to heating and cooling. If the thermostat is stuck closed, coolant can't circulate well, leading to a big heat buildup. If it's stuck open, the engine would run cool, but that's safer than overheating. Look out for cracked radiator hoses, dirty fins, and faulty caps. Many Ford users get the right coolant wrong. Don't use random antifreeze. Use the coolant type Ford specifies and mix it with clean water, preferably 50-50. As I've said many times, there's no such thing as lifetime coolant. Spending $50 to $200 every now and then on coolant, hoses, thermostat, and a cap beats a major repair, but overheating damage can cost you up to $5,000 easily. Number 9. Take care of your tires and maintain alignment. I can tell you, your tires and suspension are just as important as your engine parts. Let them go out of spec and you'll pay for it with new tires, a worse ride, and suspension damage. But with a little care, you'll get more life out of those tires. Tires on some corners wear faster than others, especially the front, which takes the brunt of steering and braking. Rotating them evens that out. Ford advises rotating tires regularly to extend tread life. When your wheels are misaligned, they fight the road. That adds wear to tires, stress on suspension, and even guzzles a bit more fuel. Doing rotation and alignment checks for your Ford gives you a chance to spot bent rims, worn ball joints, bad tie rods, and any suspension damage before it turns into a bigger bill. But you might be asking, how do I know when to rotate my tires, RJ? A good rule of thumb is to rotate the tires every 5,000 to 7,500 miles. DIY rotations are an easy task and can take about an hour. Then, align it at least once a year. This usually costs between $50 and $168, but alignment is harder to do yourself and you might need to go to a shop. Don't believe the myth that says that new tires don't need rotation. Even new ones can wear unevenly without rotation. Some also say you should replace the bad tire without worrying about alignment, but remember, your tires and suspension take extra stress. Number 10 is rust and corrosion. This might be surprising for you, but I've actually repaired far too many trucks and SUVs where minor rust was ignored until it became a huge problem. Frame rust, rotted rocker panels, and rusted bolt holes start small and end up expensive. If you want your Ford to last past 300,000 miles, controlling rust is one of those preventative things you can't skip. Older F-150s are famous for frame rust, rear leaf spring mounts, and brake fuel line corrosion, especially in salty or wet climates. Also, some Ford Focus models from 2005 to 2010 tend to rust around rear wheel arches, exhaust brackets, and sills. You should check the wheel wells, undercarriage, door edges, and rocker panels, where water, salt, and debris can cause rust. After salty roads or wet weather, rinse off the undercarriage. Salt and grime hold moisture and heat paint. A good hose or pressure washer, if you have one, is a good idea every 3 weeks. Also, inspect paint, chips, and scratches and touch them up. Clear out the drains and seals and protect the underside. It's good to use wax or sealant coatings to protect the car. For maybe $100 to $300 a year in washes, touch-ups, and undercoating sprays, you can protect against letting corrosion spread. Some of the most frustrating breakdowns I've fixed started with nothing more than a bad battery or loose wire. That takes me to number 11, which is issues with the battery and electrical system. You don't want your Ford to die on you because you ignored the little things in the electrical system. The battery and alternator are the backbone of your Ford's electrical life. If the battery can't hold a charge or the alternator isn't pumping voltage, your lights dim, electronics act weird, and eventually the engine won't start. Some Ford complaints include dead batteries, blown fuses, faulty wiring, alternator failure. I've had F-150s that walked into my shop because they just stopped. Turns out the battery was shot or a wire had rubbed through the insulation and ground it out. That's avoidable. Even newer Fords are vulnerable. Recently, Ford recalled over 270,000 Broncos and Mavericks over battery defects that could cause loss of power. So you should inspect your Ford regularly by checking the battery terminals and cables, testing battery voltage and health, looking for parasitic draws, and replacing your battery right on time. Rounding up is number 12, which is to drive gently and avoid abusing your car. Even the best engine, transmission, or suspension can't last when you're always pushing hard, launching, slamming gears, or hammering through potholes. Even a perfectly healthy 3.5-liter EcoBoost or a 5.4-liter Triton can live much longer if you don't flog them day after day. Heating, cooling, and wear cycles happen faster when beating on the engine. A harsh driving habit can turn what should have been a $200 repair into a $4,000 failure. So focus on smooth acceleration and braking, and stay off the stop signs and red lights as speed breakers. For manual transmission Fords, shift the gears cleanly, avoid overheating your engine, and respect road limits. Finally, when driving on a rough road, drive at a moderate speed when the roads are bad. And if you're the kind of driver who wants your Ford to hit 1,000,000 miles, make sure to subscribe because in the next video, I'm breaking down the old school tricks mechanics used before computers ran our cars.